Dirty Birds, what's up? Welcome back. I am joined not by Tori McElhaney, not by Taryn Walk today, but by our very own Dave Archer. Dave, thank you so much for joining me. It is a pleasure to be sitting across from you today.
Oh, dude, it's great to be with you. It's fun to be out there practice and chop things up like you and I do, and we talk about what's going on in practice. And we've downgraded what the set looks like with me coming on as opposed to Tori and Taryn, so I apologize for that.
It's all good, but fans won't be without Tori today. We will have on the back half of this episode an awesome interview that she did with Robert Mays of The Athletic, who does the Athletic Football Show. For any other podcast fans out there, it's a really great one. I would recommend giving it a listen. I know it's something I listen to throughout training camp, throughout the year, if you want to get smarter about football. So that's going to be on the back end of this episode. But Dave, you and I are going to chat a little bit about training camp, the second straight day of pads, which added a little bit of a new wrinkle, I think, to this camp so far. It was the first time that they've done back-to-back padded practices. Did you see anything in particular from the team out there today, kind of energy-wise?
Yeah, there's no question. Energy is a great way to put it. We looked tired. I thought that there were some guys that it got to them, and that's why you do it. You know, you've got to – training camp is training camp for a reason, and yes, you're working on X's and O's, and you're working on chemistry. You're also working on the conditioning piece to it, and we're running a lot of team reps in practice, which I think – I got a chance to talk with Jake Matthews, had a chance to talk to Ruka Rororo post-practice, and they really accentuated that point that we're doing a lot of team reps, which gives us the feeling of the game. I talked to AJ Terrell, and AJ talked about how he loves the team reps as opposed to 7-on-7, because 7-on-7, you're not running the football. You're not having to shift gears and fit against the run or fit against a screenplay. And with the variety of plays that Zach Robinson's thrown at the defense, now it's a game-type experience for them. So they've got to run with a guy down the field and immediately get back in the huddle, get the call, and now here comes a running play. Here comes Bijan Robinson at him, and vice versa. And so you're getting that kind of energy, and it's sapping. It can sap you. So back-to-back days, as you mentioned, of full pads. And so, yeah, there was a little bit of I don't think the energy dropped. I think the energy level dropped. I think guys were fighting to I thought that James, and I know you want to talk about James Pearce Jr., and he's a guy it's worth talking about, right? But just from the perspective of what you're talking about, energy-wise, my goodness, you talk about a dude that you could tell was tired, but every rep was full speed, challenging guys, and we can get into what he did, but I just thought his energy level really was pretty cool that, you know, you look over to rookie and say, wait a minute, this guy might be carrying a torch for energy today.
He is giving Jake Matthews in practice some really fascinating and interesting battles. I mean, Jake Matthews obviously being kind of the like flagship veteran on this group. It's been fascinating to watch, but I totally get what you're saying. It's almost like it's not the effort level has dropped, but just that full capacity of the tank of gas is a little bit lower than maybe it was to start the week, just because, again, it's hot out there. You're going through it back-to-back days, but that's what this time is all about. One interesting thing, again, about this team is the Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins, which, to your point, the fact that they're running a lot of team, I think they're able to do that at a high level really throughout all of practice because of those two guys. If you're going in there with the second team offense against the first team defense, there's really not been a drop-off. That competition level has stayed high, and I do think it's because you've got such a polished veteran back there running the ship with the second team offense. But do you think, given the way that the Falcons start this season and how important kind of those first 4 games, obviously starting against Tampa in the division, do you think that's maybe colored their approach at all to training camp with more of these team periods to just get these guys ready for football action right out of the jump?
Yeah, I think it's a great analogy. I think that when you begin to think about because there's a lack of hitting, if you will, in practice, and why not accentuate the drills that are going to give us the best opportunity to kind of simulate that? And that would be the team reps, not 7-on-7 and individual drills. And we're still doing some of that, but they're spending a lot of time in teams. So I agree with you. The competition level with the two quarterbacks, and you're talking about competition to the defense. The defense doesn't get a drop-off when all of a sudden here comes Kirk Cousins in there. Now it's a meaningful rep, whoever's in the game, because you're going to get a big-time guy trying to distribute the football against you. So I completely agree with that. But I do think that the idea of how quickly you need to start, and obviously Tampa and opening day, to get out of the blocks quickly, to have as much feeling of a game type atmosphere certainly would accentuate your ability to get out to a quick start like you're talking about.
Well, and typically, I think of all the sides of the ball, I guess we'll include special teams in that analogy, even though I didn't intend to. Defense is the one that usually starts fastest, not only in training camp, but I do think in that kind of that first stretch of the season as teams and offenses are kind of finding that chemistry and really defining what they are. So what have you seen from this defense in particular, and does that give you a little bit – how are you feeling? I don't want to put any words or color that question. How are you feeling about what you've seen from this defense and their ability to start fast this year?
Yeah, I think that Jeff Ulbrich, I'm going to call him Brick, that's his nickname here, and we've known him for a long time, and a guy that it's interesting for me with Brick because I think Brick has old school mentalities with new school ways of getting it done.
Ooh, great. Yeah, I love it.
I don't know if that works or not, but he's got an old school, tough guy, in your face, aggressive, right to the edge of the whistle mentality, but we're going to do it with some of the nuances that are new school type stuff defensively. So I think the defense has been outstanding. I think the blend of players, whether it's Divine Diablo, middle linebacker, or James Pearce Jr. getting more and more reps at that with that more and more with the number ones, the ability for Caden Ellis to kind of develop in what Jeff Ulbrich envisions him as that second-level player that has all those dimensions of getting after the quarterback, but also how can he affect the run game and giving him free go to attack. I think all of that has come to life. I think that they're still working on some of the nuances in the secondary. Obviously, there's some holes to fill, or one hole in particular, potentially. That safety spot, Fuller's there, Watts is there, DeMarco Helms is getting a chance to play some. So they're trying to kind of figure that out. Ironically, I think all those guys are rooming together, which is kind of cool, with Jeffy Bates. All those guys are in the same room together. But I think that there's some things they're still trying to work out with Jerry Gray's group in the back end. I think the front seven is exactly what you were hoping it would be.
I want to go ahead and kind of dive in on James Pearce Jr. a little bit because I'm trying to think about which rookies he reminds me of, because in training camp you can really tell. I think Calvin Ridley was this way, where it was just his route running immediately jumped off the page to me, and I was like, that is different from like kind of some of the other guys I've seen. I think Bijan was kind of the same thing, where when he made that first cut in open space, I was like, yep, I get it. And the way that he has just attacked the edge, and we've heard a lot this week about get off, is the number one thing Nate Ollie and Brick want from this defense. I mean, is there there are maybe a handful of guys in the league right now that I feel like have just the juice off the edge that he has. What have you seen from James Pearce Jr.?
I think you give those guys you talked about, give Brick and Nate Ollie credit for defining what they wanted out of James Pearce Jr. Say, this is what I want you to do, okay? And so, we'll expand your package, and we'll talk about keeping outside shoulder free and all these kind of things, or wrong shouldering stuff against the run game. Right now, I want you coming off the ball. I want you to come off the ball, attack. We'll fill in from the back end. I'll have safeties come down. I have linebackers scraping that are going to fill holes. I need you to come off the ball and create havoc. And I think he's embraced that big time. I think that there's some weird conversation out there. This is a guy, remember, that they targeted early on in the draft process. Yeah. Even before there was even a hint that Jalen Walker was going to be available, this was the dude they really liked. They spent time with his family. They talked to him numerous times. They loved this dude coming in, and I don't think he's disappointed. I don't think he's let him down, but I think it's because Brick and Nate have said, this is what I want you to do. You be the best you can be at this right now, and then we'll expand on that if we need to. But I mean, Will, it's interesting. He's got a variety of stuff now.
He does, more than I expected him to.
Exactly. I mean, you start seeing spin moves. He's got a rip power move that he can go to. I even saw him bull rush a couple of guys out there yesterday. Yep. So this guy is, I think, maybe even, I don't know, I was going to say they're surprised because they did a lot of homework on this dude. Yeah. He surprised me. I didn't do as much homework on him as they did, but I think that I would say that there's a venture of surprise in there that is as good as he's been.
Yes, he has really, I think, impressed early, which is what everybody wanted to see. Not that the other rookies haven't, but it is apparent day in and day out, and it's that level of consistency that I think we touched on at the beginning of the show, where the energy day in or like rep in, rep out with him is very consistent. So it's great to see. It's kind of what you want. But I do want to flip over to the other side of the ball and kind of ask you about your expertise in the quarterback position. Michael Penix, we saw 3 starts from him last year, and I think we saw a lot to be excited about. But to your eye, knowing this game the way that you do and knowing the position the way that you do, are there certain things and markers you're looking for specifically with Michael Penix in preseason, in joint practices, in things like that to be, okay, I saw that you made a little step here, and that's going to be important on Sundays?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm looking for from Mike is, first of all, you got to distribute your guys. You got to get your guys lined up, and you got to get guys moving. And there's a lot of movement in this offense, as you well know. Zach likes to change strengths of formations. Then the next thing you know, here comes a motion. And there's a lot going on in the offense. So for Michael to have a command of that and not have to see it, and that might seem kind of weird to fans because I want my eyes there. I don't want my eyes looking over here. Okay, are you going to motion far enough for me to? Okay, he's got I've noticed that he's got a nice feel for that. Now a lot of that comes in OTAs because they rep a lot of this stuff against air and all that kind of stuff. But now that it's come together in pads, I've noticed that is carried over into camp. So his eyes aren't where they're not supposed to be. His eyes are where they're supposed to be.
Do you like practice that in the mirror or something? Like I'm trying to is it all a visualization thing in your mind?
I think it's a comfort zone thing, really, Will. I think it's you get comfortable. Well, I don't need to look and see if Ray's motioned far enough. I can signal Ray and he's going to come. And now I'm looking at how is it manipulating the defense? Who's reacting to it?
Gotcha.
All of a sudden this guy tightens down and now I can get outside of him on a wheel route or something. Those are the kind of things you're looking for. And I think he's doing those kind of things. Ball coming out on time. When you get back, is he holding the ball, and the next thing you know, he's scrambling out and it kills the play? No, ball's coming out. I think the things that he still needs to continue to work on is he needs to continue, and you always are as a quarterback, you're continually working on your accuracy when the ball's coming out on time. And I think that's something he's continuing to work on. He's missed some shots. He would tell you readily that he missed some shots when he played last year. He had a couple opportunities against Washington comes to mind, missed Drake a couple of times. Those hurt him, didn't haunt him, but hurt him, and he wanted to be better about it. In fact, he said, I think I heard an interview on radio that he was asked, what is it you're working on? He says, I want to be able to give my guys a chance.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, and it's a simple deal, but I can't get a chance if you miss me, if you overthrow me. So I think those are the things, and I'm seeing him continue to work on that. So that's the part that I want to see take another step. But I think he's right on target. I mean, we're in love with the arm strength, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, how many throws has he made where you kind of, ooh, that was pretty good? There
was one today where he had all of it combined, and there was maybe you saw it was actually a ball that Drake dropped. So yeah, I know he's not going to love me saying that, but it was perfect because he threw it right before Drake broke out of his route, and it beat the coverage by just a little bit, and it was right on the numbers. I was shocked that Drake didn't haul it in because 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, he's coming up with that ball. But, hey, if you're going to drop it, any time to do that is in training camp. They'll get it right, they'll fix it, and they'll get right back to it.
And that's the piece, real quickly, that's the piece on what Michael is doing is another piece of what he's learning are the nuances of receivers. And as much as you're looking at coverage, you're going to glance and you're going to get an idea of little hints at the top of route. I know that he was having a discussion. You and I were standing talking, I believe, and we were watching practice there. And he came over and he and Ray McLeod were having a conversation about the top of a route because the ball got knocked down by Alford. And he was talking about the little hint at the top of the route. And a hint is when you're going to come out of the break. And so that allows me to get rid of the ball on time or early, and so other defenders can't break on the football. And he and Ray were having that conversation. That's ongoing. And we're a week into practice, and so those are cool conversations you see your receivers and quarterback having.
Absolutely. I want to wrap us up with a quick question about joint practices. But in joint practices, I feel like we're going to get maybe the clearest identifiers of what this team is capable of. And I don't know about you, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time pinpointing exactly what I expect this team to be because there's going to be so many new contributors and impactful contributors, I think, on defense. Obviously, when you have such a new element at the most important position at quarterback, that throws a whole kind of new wrinkle to the offensive side of the ball. So do you have kind of a better sense of what the ceiling for this group could be, or the floor of this group? Like, do you feel more confident in one version or the other? And do you think we'll learn and get more of an idea of that answer during joint practices?
Yeah, I think that from an identity standpoint, I think we're still trying to find what that is. But specifically about ceiling and floor, I think I have a better idea what the floor is than the ceiling. And to me, I think the floor is going to be very reasonable. It's going to be something that you could actually win with if you had to, kind of like win a game with your C game or your B- game, right? I think I have a better idea there because I don't think there's going to just be this chasm that you're going to fall into.
Is that because of the offensive line, the run game? You do still have, I think their defensive line, they do have some veterans they can lean on. Like, is that kind of where the veteran backstop is good with this team?
I think that all of that. I think that the veteran piece, but I think the young guy piece and the go make a play piece is there as well, both on both sides of the ball. We have yet to see kind of what that can blossom into defensively, taking the football away, ball on the ground, quarterback gets hit, ball on the ground, those kind of things that, to me, that's where you start thinking, okay, how high can the ceiling go?
It's more exciting.
And so, you get kind of excited about it. But I do think that there's enough talent and enough know-how in coaching that you have a pretty good idea. This is about about where we're going to be from a bottom standpoint, and you kind of like the beginning stages of that.
Absolutely. So let's wrap it up with a little joint practice talk. Is there one position group that you maybe want to really laser in on to be like, I'm going to learn something about you guys these 2 days?
I don't think that you could. I don't know that I can narrow it down. I think that you and I are both going to be watching as much one-on-one stuff as we can. Yeah. Obviously, watching those young guys come off the edge against the Tennessee offensive tackles and interior defensive line. I'm going to be really interested. I think there's an area, Will, if there's an area that I'm wondering about, not concerned right now, but I'm wondering about the wide receiver core. Okay, I'm wondering. You don't have to wonder about Drake London. Number 5 is okay, and Ray McLeod is a solid player. With the Mooney bang up, and we're not uncertain as to how long that's going to take. Now you start thinking, okay, what does the depth look like? David Sills has looked pretty good, and you and I were talking about that prior to coming on today. Obviously, Cordero Hodge is a guy that you like. Then you begin to kind of wonder, okay, where else are we from a depth standpoint? That would be interesting to watch those guys go against DBs that aren't going to cheat, because I can tell you, folks, there's nothing more irritating to a quarterback and a wide receiver than DBs that know what we're doing, which this group does, and they're squatting on routes and doing stuff that you would never do in a game and screwing everything up. So you're going to get honest looks from Tennessee because they don't know what we're doing. And so you're going to get some honest looks. They're going to play their coverages. They're going to play it the right way, and you're going to get a better look at what the receiver core looks like.
Now I know why some of these double moves have been so effective out here on the field.
That's right.
But yes, that's absolutely. Let's see. Can Chris Blair, can Casey Washington, can Nick Nash, can any of these guys kind of separate themselves? I think it's a great point.
What about you? What group are you home?
I mean, it's always kind of the trenches for me.
Okay.
Like, because we haven't, and to your point earlier, it's like it's been so much team, we haven't really gotten that pure, like, everybody line up around, that defensive end and the right tackle, and they're going after each other, and then we're bumping inside one and getting those matchups. I love that stuff. So that's what I hope we see a good bit of out there. It's the big uglies, just like going right after each other.
And we're not really sure. I think you and I sit here right now. We're not really sure. You like that Ryan Newsel re-signed, and Ryan played 8 games for us a year ago and then played some games prior to that. But that also means that the center position was banged up the last couple seasons. So what does that backup situation look like? And there's a really good battle going on with 2 or 3 guys in that capacity as far as your depth on the offensive line.
Yeah, Javon Gwynn, Kyle Hinton have been here for a little while. Yeah, that's a great point. Arch, this was awesome.
Good.
It's always a blast to be in the podcast studio with you. But now you guys are going to get, honestly, maybe an even better conversation with Tori and Robert. So let's go ahead and throw you on over to that.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to welcome Robert Mays of the Athletic Football Show to the podcast. My friend, and hopefully friends of the Atlanta Falcons podcast network. Robert, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
It's so good to see you. I'm very glad to be here.
I know, it's been a long time, honestly, since the Combine. Yeah, a lot has changed.
It feels like that was 2 weeks ago, but it definitely was not 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and unfortunately it was not. Or fortunately, I mean, hopefully you got some vacation.
I did. I actually had a really good off season. Like we traveled a lot, so I'm joking. We had a great time off. I'm very excited to be back to it.
Good. Well, something that's really interesting is that you always do kind of a tour of training camps, trying to get the lay of the land of how things are going to go in the 2025 season. And something I want to start off talking about with you is actually all of the moves that have been made defensively for this team in the last year. Hiring Jeff Ulbrich as the defensive coordinator, using your first 2 picks of the 2025 NFL draft, 2 first-round picks on edge rushers, Jalen Walker and James Pearce Jr. But you were actually sitting in on Jeff Ulbrich's press conference today, and I'm curious your opinion on what you heard and took away from what he was saying and what he's establishing so early in training camp.
I think there are a few different things that really jumped out to me. Him talking about and having the number in his head of the number of reps they've played out of a certain defensive front. And I think that really speaks to the importance of repetition in this system. Like when you're transitioning from a more read and react type defense to a more attacking type defense, you kind of have to ingrain that mindset in guys. And as they get more and more reps playing that way, it starts to become natural. You no longer are thinking. And so clearly they're prioritizing like getting to a place where this just feels like the way we have to play. It becomes ingrained in the player specifically. So that really jumped out to me. And then I think it's just the overall like energy and mentality of somebody like Jeff Ulbrich. Like when I think about why this defense could potentially be better than people expect, why it can play above its collective talent level, it's a mindset and play style thing. And when you look at the best defenses in the league, one of the first teams that comes to mind, and again, it's a similar DNA, their defensive line coach, Nate Ollie, was the assistant defensive line coach there last year, is Houston. Like you watch the way that the Texans play, the way that the Niners have played over the years, the way that the Jets played when Jeff Ulbrich was there and they were rolling, you feel them. Like they have a certain energy and attitude that they play with. And I think he said that today, like you need that to be a good defense. You need to play with edge to be a good defense. And I think he's the type of coach that can hopefully crank that up. And when we get to Halloween, it's like, man, why are the Falcons defense? Why is this unit just better than we expected it to be? I think that sort of mentality is how you potentially get there.
Talking about playing with some edge, let's talk a little bit about those 2 edge rushers, Jalen Walker, who let's be real, they have said that they want him to master being an edge rusher, being probably a more traditional than what he was at the University of Georgia. And then James Pearce Jr., who, let's be real, is a traditional Jeff Ulbrich outside linebacker edge rusher. I am curious to see how they ultimately fit within what Jeff Ulbrich is doing and wanting to do. But I also understand that there are realistic expectations that you may have to have for first-year edge rushers. You know, sometimes it's a little bit of a shot in the dark in terms of how you grade them, how you look at them, what their production looks like. So when you think of James Pearce Jr. and Jalen Walker within this defensive rotation, what should be kind of the reasonable expectations for them?
It's a great question because there are questions with both guys about how they'll transition into the league. Jalen Walker hasn't done a lot of this. You know, we've seen examples of that working out, but if you're trying to replicate the Micah Parsons plan, I think you're always going to be a little bit disappointed because Micah Parsons is a very unique beast. But even at Penn State, he was somebody that played off the ball, and I think there was an inclination to say he's best moving forward. Let's try him there first, and then he becomes one of the best players in the league. If Jalen Walker can just be a diet version of that, where you see him show some natural ability as a pass rusher, he looks comfortable early. Even if he's not a Micah Parsons type player from day one, is he an impact player from day one? That's a success. And it seems like he'll be given every chance to do that. But when you haven't seen a guy do a ton of it, there's always going to be projection. With James Pearce, I think it's a matter of physicality going from college to the NFL, where this was somebody who really lived on speed. He had a certain style to his play. And those types of guys can take a little bit to adjust to the league. The Jets have taken and deployed some of those guys. Like you think about Will McFadden, you think about Bryce Huff. undersized edge rushers have had some success in that system, but Bryce Young was a situational player, and Will McFadden didn't play a ton as a rookie. He really came on as a second-year player. So I wouldn't be surprised if, because there's that jump in physicality and he's going to have to tweak some things about his game, if maybe James Pearce has a little bit longer of a runway to get going.
That makes sense. Let's switch over and talk a little bit about the offense and kind of the next steps for this group. You have a lot of returners, basically the whole gist of returners.
They have no new players.
No new players. It's everybody's the same. And I really am curious to see how Zach Robinson's offense evolves with Michael Penix under center in the pocket. What says you? What do you feel like Michael Penix inserts into this offense?
I think it's verticality and explosiveness, but as far as what they're going to do differently or how they're going to evolve, that's what I want to know. That's what I'm here to ask people.
Question number one, yeah.
Because when you have a quarterback, obviously throughout the entire offseason last year, the plan is for Kirk Cousins to be the quarterback. Mm-hmm. You build an offense through a quarterback's strengths. That's just good coaching. Even if you want to change midstream, it's difficult to do that. You can't wholesale change what you've been building through the first half of the season and most of training camp. So I'm sure there are things they want to tap into this year that they just didn't have the bandwidth to really access last year because it was a shift in the back half of the season. Mm-hmm. So what a Michael Penix-centric Falcons offense looks like with more time to build what that is, it's one of the biggest questions I have about this team, and hopefully by this time tomorrow I'll be able to give you some better answers for it.
Fantastic. And while we're kind of on this with Zach Robinson, I think something that this outside zone kind of became the stretch became the bread and butter of this run game, and what they can do, essentially putting Bijan Robinson behind Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry and just running the rock down the right side. When it comes to how the run game evolves, how is when you're thinking about scheme and everything and the trends of the league, what's kind of the weight of, okay, we know what works, we know what the bread and butter is, we know we had success doing this, but at what point do you shift to evolve into something different? Like, where do you think that line is?
It's a great question. I think that with this scheme specifically, you have to major in it to do it well, because it's similar to what we're talking about with Jeff Ulbrich. Repetition, comfort, cohesion, all of those things really play into this offensive style and how they want to run the ball. This is what Dwayne Lever does. Like, this is what he's done forever. Like,
yes.
There's a reason they've continued to lean into this. It's because it's his background. So I think the two areas where you start to think, all right, are we going too far in this direction? One is hunting out complementary runs that can become explosives. So you can major in this, but what are your little wrinkles, whether they're end arounds, different things where we can hunt out explosives in the run game with some tweaks and some wrinkles on top of this. And then I think it's just complementary runs when teams are taking something away.
Yeah.
Right? So, this is the arc of offensive and defensive football over the last 10 years in the NFL. Like, as teams were really majoring in the outside zone world in 2017, 2018, when all the McVay stuff was taking over, the league reacted.
Yeah.
And the league had an answer for how to stop those teams. And so if teams are going to deploy some of those ideas where we're going to play with these wide edges, we're not going to allow you to capture that area of the offensive line, what sort of change-ups do you have to take advantage if that's how teams are going to play you? If you can do that, right, if you're flexible enough to do that in the right moments, it's okay to have one thing that you major in a pretty pronounced way, because I think you have to live that way in this scheme in order for it to work.
As we're talking about this, it kind of gets me thinking a little bit about something that came up and that I was a little bit surprised about watching the quarterback Netflix documentary and hearing Kirk Cousins talk about Zach Robinson's offense. And he was talking about the motions and the intricacies and the timing of what everything, like how all 11 are working off of each other. I'm curious, over the course of you watching Falcons games and dissecting what is a calling card for Zach Robinson's scheme and offense, what did you kind of think when he said that as being kind of one of those things that was a bit different and an uptick for him?
That's not surprising at all. I think that, again, there's a lot of elements of this offense that kind of remind me of more like 2017, 2018 Los Angeles Rams football, not 2023 Los Angeles Rams football when Zach Robinson was there last.
Right.
So I think it is kind of a throwback a little bit, but the ideas are still the same. I think that's the fun part. I was at Rams camp 3 or 4 days ago, and in talking to some of their assistant coaches, their offense looks dramatically different than it did when Sean McVay first got there.
Right.
But it's still rooted in the same ideas. So the idea that you're marrying the run and the pass together, you're making things hard on the defense but easier on yourself, those motions are rooted in that idea. So even if the Rams have evolved and changed, this version of the offense that the Falcons are using is still rooted in the same ideas that have driven what the Rams have been since Sean McVay got there.
Yeah. What do you think is kind of the ceiling for this offense with Bijan, with Kyle Pitts, which we'll get to in a minute, Drake London, Michael Penix, this offensive line? What kind of expectations do you have?
I think health is a huge question,
Yeah.
right? Because even if this is a group where you like the starting 11, I don't think the depth I think the depth is a little shaky, especially at the pass catching spots. So if they stay healthy and Michael Penix, it's a continuation of what we saw last year, I don't think it's crazy to think this could be a top 5 offense. But there are questions there, right? We've seen him for 3 games. I think his game is fascinating to me. Like going back and watching him and studying him, we did a podcast in probably June about the second-year quarterbacks. And going back and really rewatching every throw he had last season. I don't know another quarterback in the league that's really like him. Right?
Yeah.
They're just, his strengths are so pronounced, whether it's the arm strength, the ability to push the ball to all levels of the field. I thought he processed and got to checkdowns in a really efficient way for a young quarterback, but he's a little bit robotic in the pocket. His athleticism that you see on the stopwatch doesn't always translate to the field. He's not that creative of a player off schedule, but because he's good at getting the checkdowns, does that matter? Like some guys, you watch them and it's easy to understand.
Yeah.
Like I understand what this guy is. I understand what his limitations are and what ceiling he might bump up against. I can't do that really with Michael Penix. It's
I
harder
understand.
to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm inclined to think that because he processes so well, we're going to see a really good quarterback this year. I just don't know how much those limitations come into play. I think he's one of the harder players to project in the entire league.
I honestly, I'm so glad you said that because it is one of those things that I even went back and I go and I, do my digestion of everything at the end of every season. And even I was talking to Zach Robinson during the spring and he's like, I went back and I watched Washington film to refresh myself on what it is that Michael Penix does very well. And even while you're watching all of this, seeing what he does and operating in person is even like a step forward because I remember the first day of camp, the first time he launches the ball downfield and it's the most effortless thing in the world to him, you're like, holy cow. Like I know people sometimes ding him for his accuracy as well, but I'll be honest, like we're a week into training camp and this is someone who is putting the ball right here, right in the receiver's hands, but it is sometimes about the timing or the touch. And I think that's the next step in his evolution.
That second word is exactly what I come back to.
Yeah.
Because he's an enigma when it comes to quarterback play.
Yeah.
Because it's not that he's inaccurate all the time.
Right.
It's that, so you watch, I said this on our show this summer, and I believe this. I think he might be the best intermediate outside the numbers thrower in the league now. And he's played 3 games. Like his ability to throw like you think about those deeper out routes to Darnell Mooney. Those look as good as any throw any quarterback makes in the league.
Yep.
But when he's asked to put touch on the ball and he's asked to shape certain throws, he can struggle with that every once in a while. Slot fades, certain corner routes, balls that he has to change the trajectory on. He's kind of a line drive thrower. And again, what do you do with that?
Right.
Where some throws are like the best high-end stuff you can possibly see. And then some stuff, it's like, well, I don't know if he'll ever be able to access those types of throws. And so that's why I don't know exactly where to land on him. And this idea of the highlights are so tantalizing that it's tempting to believe in them. The quarterback that reminds me of a little bit is like Matthew Stafford. And I think as we try to seek out what his ceiling might be, that's the guy that I would go back to, where Matthew Stafford's not creating a lot with his feet, but he's somebody that can access every level of the field.
Right.
He has one of the best arms we've ever seen. And I think Michael Penix can be in that same sort of category if he works on some of that stuff where we're shaping throws, we're putting more touch on throws, because that's something where Matthew Stafford can do that. It's not all line drives, RPMs all the time. It's it's arm talent versus arm strength. And I think that's going to be the question with Michael Penix is, by the end of this season, are we talking about arm talent or are we talking about some of the blind spots he still has with some of the throws that we're talking about?
Yeah, which I think is fair. And something else that is a bit of an enigma within this offense still, even though he's going on year 5, is Kyle Pitts.
I mean, the enigma in the NFL period, I think, over the last few years.
Completely agree. I think every fantasy owner would say the exact
We've all
same
had
thing.
Michael Pitts on our team over the last few years. We've all rode the roller coaster at some point.
Everyone feels, I think, a certain type of way about Kyle Pitts. And it is one of those things that you look at this season, there's been a lot of talk about about Kyle Pitts, and not just about what he is in 2025, but what that next contract looks like. Honestly, whether it's here in Atlanta or elsewhere. Because that was, even back when he was drafted, I remember having conversations about what his contract would look like. Are you valuing him as a receiver versus a tight end? Because those are two different numbers. That's two different valuations. But my main point in asking about Kyle Pitts to you is, as he's going into this 5th year, where they've not been able to replicate kind of the magic of that rookie year. And whether it be injuries, whether it be quarterback play, whether it be changes in offensive scheme, it's not manifested. So for Kyle Pitts to potentially get a big-time contract, what does his 2025 year need to look like?
I really don't know. And
Fair.
we're doing a show tomorrow with that. It's the guys who have the most at stake in the NFL this year. And I think the two players that immediately come to mind, where if you told me this offseason they signed for 1 year and $10 million somewhere, or you told me that they signed contracts in the top 5 in AAV at their position, maybe top 5 to 7, it'd be Kyle Pitts and George Pickens. Like those two guys, it's just like I would believe either end of the spectrum. And with Kyle Pitts, going into last year, I thought that when you look at the production as a rookie, it was all vertical stuff, right? Like he was almost more of like an outside receiver than he was a tight end, and that fueled a lot of the production. But then there were times over the last couple of years where I felt like they were using him too much in that role, and I actually wanted to see him in the slot a little bit more often, corner routes in space. And then when they tried to deploy him in that way, there still wasn't production. And so I don't know where the right place is to land, because I think that he's had enough struggles in enough different areas. Like you said, it seems like, well, if we fix this, it'll work. If we fix this, it'll work. And no single answer has actually caused it all to fall into place. So I don't know where you seek that out.
Yeah.
This may be unfair, but as I think about the Falcons, I kind of don't think about him. Like when I think about what they can accomplish this year and what the root causes of their offensive success will be, he's so far down the list that I almost think that whatever they get from him will be a bonus. And if you can get 4, 5, 6 explosive plays over the course of the year, if he can surprise everybody a little bit, is that just gravy on what is already a pretty good offensive foundation? Fair or unfair, that's kind of how I think about it now.
Yeah, I think too, and this is something that I've said either mailbags or podcasts, is the situation that Kyle Pitts is in right now from from the Falcons' offensive construction of the roster, what it was when in his first year, his rookie year, thinking back to that time, there was not really a significant run game established. There was not a true wide receiver number 1 option. That was the first year without Julio Jones, and Calvin Ridley, you only got a few games out of him that year. So Matt Ryan's options were very limited to, let's be real, Kyle Pitts. Now that's no longer the case, and hasn't really been for the last couple of years, because you do have Drake London, you have Bijan Robinson, you have Tyler Algier, Darnell Mooney. And I think, to your point, it's like, I personally have the expectation that if we're looking at a whole game, a whole 4 quarters worth of potential throws and targets, I'm thinking that it's fair to say that Kyle Pitts gets 3 or 4 of those. And that's on a good day, right? Like,
that's tough when you are the 4th overall pick.
Exactly,
right?
and that's the point. Like, that's why it's hard to have that conversation.
I think that over the last couple of years, I've noticed this in a few different spots where I think and I'm not saying that Terry Fontenot has done this. I think the Kyle Pitts thing, it was right in the moment. I understand why they did it. I would do it 100 times out of 100. I watched Kyle Pitts' college film.
Well, yes.
I would have taken him in the top 5 of that draft. But you look at certain teams, two come to mind from last year specifically, the Bears and the Texans. The Texans, I think, is a little bit unfair because guys were hurt. But in Chicago, they went out and traded for Keenan Allen after already having DJ Moore, and then they drafted Rome Odunze in the top 10. And I think some teams are of the mind that, well, more receiving talent equals better automatically, right? If we have more talented players, that's great. But I think with receivers specifically, role is so important, and how the pieces all fit together is so important. Sometimes it doesn't matter if you have the most talented group if there's misalignment in the roles. And I think they've just never really figured out, even somebody as talented as Kyle Pitts, how is his role supposed to fit into the puzzle of what we're doing more broadly on offense?
I love this conversation. I hate to cut it short because I'm having such a good time chatting with you and catching up about everything, but I do kind of want to get you to go off, do all your conversations, maybe get some sleep. I know that the Atlanta airport has taken a lot
One
out
day.
of you today.
I'm working on 30 solid minutes of sleep on a red-eye flight right now. The fact that I am still forming cohesive sentences, I'm actually pretty proud of myself.
Honestly, that's a win. Last question, I'll let you out of here. It's kind of a think piece. I've been asking a lot of people this for the podcast.
I'm ready.
Let's say it's January 2026, and let's say we're sitting down right here talking about an Atlanta Falcons team that is going to be playing in the playoffs. In your opinion, what is one thing that needs to happen that allows that to manifest?
There's a group of quarterbacks right now between like quarterback 6, 7 and quarterback 15 that I feel like is pretty flat. I feel like that's a very crowded group of players where they're quarterbacks that if they're not hyper elite, they really give you a chance to win. They're substantiated good quarterbacks. Is Michael Penix one of those quarterbacks by the end of this season, right? Are we grouping him with the Jordan Loves and CJ Strouds and Jalen Hurtses, all those guys? If that's the case, then I think that's step one. Step two is around Halloween, when I am thinking about the league, how I do it, and we're trying to figure out who we want to talk about, and we're trying to find units that are playing better or worse than we expect. How excited am I to talk about the Falcons defense in week 10? Are me and Derek Klassen sitting there going, how is Jeff Ulbrich doing this, right? Like, how is this team the 17th best defense in the league? If both of those things happen, I think this would probably be a playoff team.
We will, I mean, honestly, it's like a we will wait and see type of thing. We're very early in camp. There's a lot of time left, but I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about all of this. I think this has been a fantastic conversation, and I'm super excited for all of you guys to listen. Make sure that you check us out on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We will be coming to you pretty frequently as training camp continues to roll on and as the preseason gets here. But for Robert Mays, I am Tori McElhaney. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us today.